Hello, this is Dr. Paningrai. Welcome to my biology classes for medical entrance examination. In this video, I will talking about the classification of neurons and the histology of nervous tissue. So first come to the histology of nervous tissue. As you know that the neurons are the structural and the functional unit of nervous tissue. Suppose that these are the axons of neurons, and this is the section, the TS section of the nerve. TS section of nerve. Nerve means the bundle of neurons. So these are the axon. As you know, each axon actually covered by the neurolemma. On the surface of neurolemma, there also another connective tissue layer covering, which is known as endoneurium. So each axon is covered by endoneurium, and such endoneurium forms a bundle of axon. So the covering around the axon, these are known as the endoneurium. And such bundle of nerve or the axon, this is known as the fasciculus, singular fasciculus, plural fasciculi. So this is a single fasciculus. Suppose that there is the another fasciculus, there is the another fasciculus, and each fasciculus having so many number of axons. These are the so many numbers of axons are showing here, because this is the TS or the section of nervous tissue. And here you find the another thing is that each fasciculus, which is surrounded by the another connective tissue layer. So each fasciculus is surrounded by a connective tissue layer. Here it is represented as a red color dots. So these connective tissue layers form another bundle and contains so many fasciculi. So this is single fasciculus, this is single fasciculus, this is single fasciculus. So many fasciculus covered, or the fasciculus actually covered by another connective tissue layer. This is known as the perineurium. This is the perineurium. Such perineurium holds the number of fasciculi, and such fasciculi again covered by another connective tissue layer or the membrane, and which may be the outermost covering of the nerve, and this is known as the epineurium. So each individual nerve cell having a connective tissue layer, this is known as the endoneurium. Number of neurons form a single bundle known as the fasciculus, which again covered by another connective tissue membrane. This is known as the perineurium. So many fasciculus again form another bundle, and which again covered by another connective tissue layer. This is known as the epineurium. That's all the histology of nervous tissue. Now come to the neurons, or the classification of neurons. So many neurons are present. And neurons actually classified on the basis of their functions, on the basis of their number of processes, on the basis of their location or the presence or the supplied, where they are supplied, and on the basis of their presence of the myelin sheath present or not. So first come to the classification of neurons depending on the number of processes. So the classification on the basis of number of processes. If the cyton, it has no differentiated axon or neuron, and such type of neuron actually known as the apolar neuron, or it also known as the non-polar neuron. This is known as the non-polar neuron or apolar neuron, where there is no differentiation of axon, what is axon and what is dendron. There is no difference between axon and the dendron. These are the apolar neurons, and sometimes these are also known as the unpolar neuron. Also known as unpolar neuron. And such neuron, it is believed that actually found in case of hydra. In case of hydra, the member of the Coelenterata phylum. And another type of neuron also present, and this here the apolar neuron. This is the cyton. There is some of the processes, but it is not confirmed what is the axon and what is dendron. And this is the another cyton from where a single axon actually arises and which divide after running some extents, and which forms the two processes. One is the short, another is the long, and the free end region, it forms the dendrites. And it forms the axon. This is the terminal axon. And such neuron, here you find the single pole. This is known as the unipolar neuron. Unipolar neuron, where a single pole present, from where a single extension, single axon actually develop, and after running some extent it divides into two. One forms the dendron and another forms the axon, and this type of neuron is known as the unipolar neuron. And most of the sensory neurons is like this. Most of the sensory neurons are this type, and such type of neuron also present in the embryonic condition, or such type of neurons present in the embryo. The another type of neurons also present, suppose that this is the cyton, the one pole having a single dendron and which divide into number of dendrites. This is the dendron, this is the nucleus of the cyton, this is the cyton, and just opposite to the dendron, in opposite pole, there is another processes. This is known as the axon. So both processes present in opposite direction. This is known as the bipolar neurons. Bipolar neurons. Here, such bipolar neurons actually present in the retina, retinal neurons, an olfactory epithelium, or such neurons also present in cochlear epithelium, retina present in eye, olfactory epithelium present in nose, cochlear epithelium present in ear. And another neuron where you find the number of dendrons presents but single axon present. This is known as these are the dendron, these are dendrites, this is the axon, and this is the nucleus. This is known as the multipolar neurons having number of poles. This is known as the multipolar neuron, and such neuron actually present in our central nervous system, in our brain and spinal cord. So this is the 4 types of neurons on the basis of the presence of number of the processes. If the number many, but here there is no distinction of dendrites and the axon. That's why it is known as the apolar neurons. There is no particular pole. That's why it is known as the apolar or non-polar or unpolar. Found most probably found in the hydra, and this is a single pole, unipolar. This is the double pole, bipolar. This is the number of poles are present. This is the multipolar neurons. Now come to the second type of classification. So another classification based on the function. Some neurons convey the nerve impulse from the receptor organ to brain, and such neurons are known as, suppose that this is the receptor organ, and some neurons convey the nerve impulse from the receptor organ to central nervous system. It may be brain or the spinal cord, and such neurons are known as the sensory neurons or afferent neurons. And some of the neurons are present. Those neurons convey the nerve impulse or convey the effector impulse from the central nervous system to the effector organ, or muscle or glands. And such neurons are known as the motor neuron or afferent neuron. So depending on the function of the neurons are 2 types: sensory or the afferent, which convey the nerve impulse from the sensory organs to the brain or the spinal cord. If the motor impulse conveyed by the neurons from the central nervous system to the effector organs of the muscles of the glands, these are known as the motor neuron or the effector neurons. Now come to the another type of classification. Depending on the types of organ where they are supplied. If the neurons are supplied to the somatic organs, these are known as the somatic neuron. If the neurons are supplied to the visceral organ, alimentary canal related organs, visceral organs, these are known as the visceral neurons. The somatic neurons, it may be 2 types: the somatic sensory or afferent neuron, somatic sensory neurons, and another may be somatic motor neurons. If the somatic sensory neurons, if the somatic neuron convey the nerve impulse from the somatic organ like muscle to the central nervous system, this is known as the somatic sensory neuron. If the somatic neurons convey the motor impulse from the central nervous system to the effector organs of somatic tissues or organs, these are known as the somatic motor neurons. And visceral neurons also classified into two: visceral sensory neurons and another may be visceral motor neurons. If the nerve impulse convey from the visceral organ to central nervous system, this is known as the visceral sensory neurons. If the neurons which convey the nerve impulse from the central nervous system to the effector organ of visceral organs, these are known as the visceral motor neurons. So, depending on the organs where they are supplied, the neurons are two types, somatic and the visceral. If the somatic act as a sensory, known as the somatic sensory. If the somatic act as a motor, known as the somatic motor neurons. If the neurons supply to the visceral organs, known as the visceral neurons. If they act as the sensory, known as the visceral sensory neurons. If the visceral neurons act as a motor, then it is known as the visceral motor neurons. Then come to the last one is the classification of neurons depending on the presence of myelin sheath. As you know a little bit, if the depending on the basis of presence of myelin sheath, the neurons are two types. Those have myelin sheath known as myelinated neuron, or it also known as medulated neuron. The myelin sheath, if absent, and such neurons are known as the non-myelinated neuron or non-medulated neuron. Such myelin sheath actually white in color, that's why they form the white matters in our nervous system. And non-myelinated, if the myelin sheath absent, then the color is the gray color, that's why it forms the gray matters. So this is the total classification of the neurons and the little bit of the histology of nervous tissue. I hope you enjoy better. If you like, then click on my next video to get more video like this. Thank you for clicking.